Supercars have traditionally followed a familiar hierarchy: Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, and somewhere outside that circle, the Corvette. But the 2026 Corvette ZR1X might be changing that equation entirely, because for the first time, an American performance car isn't just competing with European supercars. It might actually be forcing them to pay attention. And that raises a slightly uncomfortable question for the supercar world. If the Corvette can now match, or even exceed, European performance, what exactly separates the old hierarchy from the new one? To understand the ZR1X, you have to look at what happened when the mid-engine Chevrolet Corvette C8 arrived. For decades, the Corvette followed a traditional front-engine sports car formula: fast, capable, but still operating in a slightly different category than European exotics. The C8 changed that instantly. Suddenly, the Corvette wasn't just a performance bargain. It had the layout, the balance, and the visual drama normally associated with cars from Italy or the UK. Then came the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 with a high-revving engine that many analysts compared to engines used by Ferrari. Then the hybrid Chevrolet Corvette E-Ray, which introduced electrified all-wheel drive. And now the ZR1X sits at the top of that evolution. But here's the important part. This car doesn't exist simply to be the fastest Corvette ever built. It exists to challenge the assumption that American performance must sit below European prestige. On paper, the ZR1X is about extreme capability. But capability alone doesn't make a supercar meaningful. What's more interesting is the design philosophy behind it. Unlike many European hypercars, which are often built around exclusivity and rarity, the Corvette philosophy has always been different. Performance should be accessible. Now imagine applying that philosophy to a car capable of competing with machines from Lamborghini or McLaren. Suddenly the conversation becomes less about price and more about value. Because if a Corvette delivers comparable performance, usable technology, and real everyday drivability, does prestige still justify the enormous price gap? Or does it simply reveal how much of the supercar world is built on tradition? Here's where things get interesting. The ZR1X isn't trying to imitate European supercars. It's trying to out-engineer them. For decades, European brands held a powerful psychological advantage. Owning a Ferrari or Lamborghini wasn't just about speed. It was about identity, status, history. And this is where the ZR1X faces its biggest challenge. Because even if an American supercar can outperform European icons on paper, will buyers emotionally accept it as an equal? This is a fascinating moment in the supercar market. Younger performance buyers are increasingly less attached to traditional brand hierarchies. They care about innovation, usability, and experience. And in that environment, the Corvette suddenly becomes very competitive. Now imagine living with the ZR1X for 5 or 6 years. Unlike many exotic supercars, the Corvette has always been designed with real usability in mind. Comfortable driving position. Manageable visibility. Technology that actually makes daily driving easier. In other words, it's a supercar you could realistically use more than once a month. Maintenance costs and service networks also tend to be far more approachable compared to traditional European exotics, and that practicality quietly changes the ownership equation. Because the question shifts from, is this as prestigious as a Ferrari, to something far more practical. Is this simply the smarter supercar to own? And that psychological shift may be the ZR1X's biggest advantage. So can the Corvette truly challenge European supercars? Technically, it already is. But the real battle isn't happening on the track. It's happening in the minds of buyers. For decades, the supercar world followed a predictable order led by brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren. The Chevrolet Corvette ZR1X 2026 doesn't just challenge their performance, it challenges their assumptions. And that might be the most disruptive thing about it. Because once buyers realize that supercar capability no longer belongs to one region of the world, and that might be the most disruptive thing about it, not just speed, but a completely new definition of what a supercar can be.